My name is Jonathan. And I never thought that a day meant to celebrate joy, achievement, and family togetherness would become one of the most humbling, infuriating, and ultimately defining days of my life. Because it all started months earlier when my stepdaughter, Emily, had told me she wanted me to attend her college graduation. A milestone I had looked forward to as if it were my own, imagining the smiles, the proud glances, the hugs and congratulations. Yet as the day approached, subtle changes in her behavior began to unsettle me. The curt replies, the fleeting eye contact, the avoidance that I initially brushed off as pre-graduation stress. But on the morning of the ceremony, I received a text message that froze my blood. Jonathan, I appreciate you, but please don't come to graduation. I want this day just for my friends and immediate family. And I remember staring at my phone, incredulous, thinking surely this must be a mistake, a moment of nerves, or even someone pranking me. Yet the words were deliberate, final, and devastating, because in that instant, I realized that the person I had spent years supporting, guiding and caring for, helping with school projects, driving her to late-night study sessions, listening to her fears and dreams, was actively choosing to exclude me from one of the most important days of her life, and my heart ached, a mixture of hurt, confusion, and indignation, because while I had always known that step-parenting could be complicated, I had never anticipated outright rejection on a day meant to honor achievement. And I called my wife, Lisa, hoping she could explain, hoping she could persuade Emily, and she tried calmly, gently. Yet with that same exasperation that comes when a parent sees a child making choices that feel hurtful but insists it's for the child's autonomy. Jonathan, she's been planning this for months. She just wants her friends there. She's not rejecting you as a person. Please understand, and I wanted to believe her. I wanted to accept that Emily wasn't trying to wound me, but the sting of that exclusion, that sense of invisibility, gnawed at me as I dressed, preparing for a day I had been looking forward to, imagining arriving, seeing her across the stage, and being met with cold smiles or forced politeness. And as I drove to the campus, every familiar landmark and every memory of years spent together played like a slideshow in my mind. The graduations I had attended for other family members, the awards she had received that I had helped her study for, the countless nights I had stayed up late proofreading essays and projects, all culminating in a moment where my presence was explicitly unwanted. And when I arrived, the atmosphere was festive. Balloons, banners, parents taking photos, and there she was, radiant in her cap and gown, surrounded by friends, laughing, and not a glance in my direction, ignoring me completely. And I felt a mixture of anger and disbelief, the humiliation palpable. Yet instead of reacting impulsively, yelling or storming out, I remembered something I had learned over the years as a father, a stepfather, and a man who had faced countless challenges. Patience, observation, and strategy often outperformed raw emotion. So I lingered at the edges, watching, noting how friends crowded around her, how she directed conversations, how proud moments were shared. And slowly, carefully, I formulated a plan. Not for revenge, not for payback, but for ensuring that my role in her life would not be diminished, that respect, dignity, and acknowledgement would ultimately prevail. And I started subtly engaging, offering to take photographs for families nearby, complimenting friends on their accomplishments, asking gentle questions, positioning myself as helpful, kind and unobtrusive until a few parents and guests, noticing my involvement, mentioned to Emily, with warmth and curiosity, that I had been there helping, that I had been capturing moments for everyone. And I could see the first flicker of surprise cross her face, realizing that while she had attempted to sideline me, I had quietly inserted myself into the day in a way that mattered. And later, as the ceremony concluded and the crowd began to dissipate, I approached Emily, careful, composed, respectful, and she looked at me, a mixture of irritation and guilt flashing across her face. And I said softly but firmly, "Emily, I respect your day, I respect your choices, but I also need you to see that I am part of this family and part of your life, whether you choose to acknowledge it in the moment or not. And her friends and family paused, the words hanging in the air, heavy with honesty and authority. And for a long moment, Emily said nothing, perhaps realizing that exclusion was not a shield against recognition, that I was not going to disappear quietly. And then, as if the tension had cracked, the first smile appeared, hesitant, fragile, and I could see that the message had landed, that acknowledgement, respect, and presence cannot be erased simply with avoidance. And when the post-ceremony photos were being taken, I positioned myself naturally, unobtrusively, yet visibly, making sure the memories included all those who mattered. And Emily, initially resistant, eventually let go of her hesitation, allowing me into some candid shots, laughing in photos we took together. And for the first time that day, I felt a measure of relief and quiet triumph. Not because I had won an argument, but because I had demonstrated that my place in her life was earned, present and undeniable. And later, as we left the campus, she pulled me aside, quietly, apologetically, admitting that she had felt overwhelmed, anxious, and uncertain about how friends would perceive her stepfather, and I reassured her that it was okay to have those feelings, that what mattered most was honesty and mutual respect, that the day could still be celebrated fully without diminishing the bond we had built over the years. And in that moment, a weight lifted, a sense of reconciliation blossomed, because I realized that sometimes the most impactful actions are not dramatic confrontations, but calm, steady demonstrations of care, presence, and integrity. And as we drove home, sharing stories about friends, plans for the summer, and future milestones, I reflected on the lessons of the day, that exclusion can be powerful, but inclusion, dignity, and persistence can quietly transform hearts. That respect is both demanded and modeled, and that being steadfast, patient, and principled can turn an attempt at marginalization into an opportunity for growth, understanding, and lasting connection. And when we returned home, I saw my wife watching us, a knowing smile on her face, a silent acknowledgement that what had unfolded was not just about a graduation, but about family, boundaries, and mutual recognition. And as Emily unpacked gifts from relatives, we shared a quiet moment alone where she admitted she had misjudged me, that her actions had been hurtful, and that she wanted to include me more meaningfully in her life moving forward. And I nodded, letting her know that forgiveness, openness, and effort were all I sought, not dominance or authority. And in the days that followed, our relationship strengthened, trust was rebuilt, and Emily began to consult me on decisions, seek advice, and invite me to events without hesitation, all of which reaffirmed that a single moment of exclusion, though painful, did not define our bond, because what mattered most was the consistency of love, respect, and presence. And as I sit now, weeks later, reflecting on that day, I realized that my calm, patient response had not only preserved my dignity, but had taught Emily a subtle, important lesson, that those who truly care do not disappear when unacknowledged, that relationships are nurtured through persistence and integrity, and that love in all its forms must be recognized, respected, and upheld, no matter the challenges or missteps along the way. And I, Jonathan, feel a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that I stood my ground, honored the role I have earned in my stepdaughter's life, and turned a moment that could have fractured family bonds into one that ultimately strengthened them, leaving everyone not in shock at conflict, but speechless at the quiet power of presence, patience, and unwavering commitment to family.